let's go over and cover a couple of things here. So we're going to talk about the solution just as a quick overview. Is everybody familiar with Azure Stack, how it works, what it's configured? Oh, good, good. Okay, we got a good show of hands here. We're going to also talk about the top 5 reasons. Again, it's not going to let you down. It's going to actually enable your success working with your customers, working on your transition into a cloud environment. And then we'll kind of summarize and give you some next steps. So for folks who are familiar with Azure Stack, this will be a bit of a review. For folks who are not, what I really want to tell you is Microsoft has done some really great forethought in engineering and developing the Azure Stack solution. What Azure Stack is really an extension of the Azure public environment, the services, the cloud deployment tools, etc., into your on-premise environment. So it's on your premises, behind your firewall, managed by your people. You get more control over the environment than just having things up in the cloud. Now, as you can see here, we leverage a lot of common tools, things like PowerShell, things like the Azure Resource Manager for deployment. And if you look and go down the stack here, you can see that it looks almost identical, except rather than being in the cloud, it's inspired by the cloud, designed to run hardware in your data center. Now, that concept alone, that strategy of extending the Microsoft public cloud into your environment brings all kinds of benefits. You get a common user experience. Your developers are developing in an environment that's going to be ready to go to Azure Public. So you don't have to go through extra steps to validate and make sure whatever you're doing and moving to the cloud is going to work. It's all ready because you developed it in that environment. And that's because it has the consistent API type activity configurations. Now, HPE brings a lot of goodness to the environment as well. Here you see the solution for the Azure Stack that HPE brings to market based on rack-mount DL380 servers. You can have up to 16 nodes in a scale unit, but we offer you multiple configuration options. So let me ask a question. Who in here likes to buy their shirts and clothes off the rack? Who in here likes to have custom fitting? You like to have things tailored to your needs, to your requirements, the length of your arms, right? HPE offers the ability to consult with you, to actually understand the environment, understand your workloads, and design a solution based on RAM, memory, CPU, storage, and networking to meet your requirements. It's not an off-the-shelf type configuration. We can package your solution in multiple ways. We can rack and stack it at the factory. I can ship it and rack it in your environment. You can ship your rack to me and we'll integrate it. So we offer you multiple ways to put that environment in your, the Azure Stack solution in your environment. And then lastly, once we get all this integrated together, we use our best-in-class OneView management tools to integrate it together, use it for deployment, health and monitoring, as well as alerting when there are failures in the system. Last but not least, multiple options to source it. You can buy it outright, make it a CapEx type purchase, or you can acquire it through the HPE GreenLake services, managed services, where we'll actually bring it in, set it up, manage it, maintain it, do everything for you. Now, a lot of customers ask me these days, okay, now I understand what Azure Stack is. Why do I need it? What benefit is it really going to bring to my environment? Well, number one, we know that just because you can move everything up into the cloud doesn't mean it needs to really be there. Some of the data you move up there, you wind up moving back and forth and paying extra costs for it. You wind up replicating to other locations and paying extra costs for it. So in some cases, you have data that you need to keep in-house for development purposes, like DevOps. The other reasons you'd need to use an Azure Stack would be if, for instance, you're in a location where you don't have connections to the internet on a regular basis. Maybe your connections go up and down. You need to be in a disconnected mode, but have those services available to you. And then also, in a lot of countries, a lot of states, here in the US have to meet regulatory compliance. Maybe it's your intellectual property. You know, the data cannot move out of your location, can't be out of the state, can't be out of the country. So being able to meet those data sovereignty requirements as well as regulatory compliance can be huge. We talked about disconnected. Let's talk now about performance. Sometimes running applications in the cloud, you're subject to latency, moving data between extreme locations. I mean, we still have physics involved in the IT world and the movement of data, but if I can move that workload down into a single location, process it as one big process in there, I can reduce the latency overall. And then the last one we mentioned is DevOps. So those are the 4 primary reasons that Azure Stack can help you. It's an on-premise hybrid cloud, but it's an extension of Azure Public into your site. So let's talk about the top 5 reasons that you should be choosing HPE ProLiant for Microsoft Azure Stack. The first one, we kind of mentioned. It's the most configurable solution out there. Don't get t-shirt sizes, but we'll consult with you to determine what kind of processor you want, how many cores, how much RAM memory in the system, what kind of networking you want. Do you have a standard for switches? Do you have a requirement for capacity? So we'll work with you, understand your environment, consult, and recommend the solution for you based on 1 of 2 scenarios, either a hybrid configuration of SSD and spinning media, or a high-speed all-flash configuration. Whatever meets your workload requirement is what we'll help you to achieve. Now, security. Security is huge, and it keeps coming up every day, not only in the cloud, but in everybody's data center. And with HPE ProLiant, we have unmatched security because of the silicon root of trust. Is everybody familiar with the silicon root of trust? We hear a lot about that from different manufacturers. Built into the ILO, built into their processes, you have a way to make sure that all your firmware and BIOSes stay at consistent levels. HP actually takes the silicon root of trust, creates a silicon footprint of all the areas in your environment, fans, BIOS, power supplies, anything that has electronic BIOS or firmware that can be changed, and we write a silicon hash with it so that next time it powers on, if it's changed in any way, you'll get a flag and it'll say, hey, something's different. Do you want to continue or do you want to stop and revert back? So this is huge in terms of stopping malware and security and providing security in the environment. Now, the pay-as-you-go option is something, again, unique to HPE. We have a pay-as-you-go option here with the HPE GreenLake where we can provide Azure Stack as a service in your environment. We will actually help you to determine what solution you need. We'll get it installed, we'll get it configured, we'll work with you to provide right tools like billing, monitoring, and bill back. If you have those kind of things, we can certainly work with you. But more importantly, what we do is we also work with you to scale. So you start with the resources you need today. As your environment grows and you monitor that environment, we'll come in and work with you to add the right additional resources to scale. But you only pay for what you consume. Okay? Now, here's kind of the way that works. If you look at the normal step function, right? Buying and growing an environment can be very erratic based on growth at times of year, acquisitions of other companies. And if you can make that step function a little smoother, you can achieve areas of greater cost savings. So being able to understand your environment with our consumption analytics tool to see what's growing, what's not, this will actually allow you to be ahead of the game, better for planning, and things will grow more smoothly and economically. And you can see here that we get a 50% downtime reduction because we're doing that proactive planning, and we've gotten better performance. All right, so here's some of the benefits of the GreenLake service. 65% get better value, 44% get it simplified in their IT, 30% achieve better economics, and 40% achieve better control over their environment. It's not a set and forget kind of environment. You really have to have the tools to monitor it properly. Number 4, working with HPE, you get that expertise that you need to actually consult, understand the challenges of implementing an Azure Stack solution, and literally try it before you buy it. How do we do that? Well, some of the folks were here earlier and they looked at or saw the note about our Azure Stack Innovation Centers. This is a unique concept that HP has, and we have locations around the world: Geneva, Switzerland, Bellevue, Washington, and Singapore, where customers can either remotely or in person access experts from either HPE or Microsoft to see a demo, a hosted presentation, or if you have a workload you want to test and make sure that it works and understand what the performance that you get, we can actually load it up in our data centers. You have remote access to it. You can see what it's going to be, and you have a predictable and more success experience in ensuring that. So again, this gives you all the options for the ASIC. I really encourage you to reach out to your HPE sales rep, get engaged, and set up one of the demos of that. Now, in addition to some of the demos and consulting, we also do some workshops. You can do that POC that we talked about, but you can also get some advice on how to provide insight and guidance for the next steps, planning out the deployment of the project. That'll help you accelerate it and get all the right stakeholders engaged. And these sessions can be a single day or multi-day workshops. All right, last reason, number 5, why you should be choosing HPE ProLiant for Microsoft Azure Stack as your partner. We partner with other ISV companies in the industry to provide solutions for Azure Stack that sometimes aren't available just in the core operation or core functionality. So we've worked with partners in the data protection area like Commvault, Veeam, Veritas, Micro Focus Data Protector, validating their solutions in our live Azure Stack environments to know that data protection works, right? I can back up, I can restore locally to another Azure Stack stamp to the cloud. Validating that means that there's less risk for you when you need to implement data protection. We've also worked with companies like F5 and Zero Down to provide high availability solutions. Now, as a default, Azure Stack doesn't provide native replication snapshots to other sites. But we've worked with Zero Down and F5 to prove that we can maintain an environment, and even if one stamp goes down, the other one continues to operate and be available. We've also worked with independent companies like Corinth for migration services. They're a new player in the market called Migration as a Service. They can actually come into your environment, install an agent, and say, let's look at all the workloads you have. Which ones are a good target to be migrated into Azure Stack? And then based on the results, get that moved in for you. And then last but not least, I did mention before, we tightly integrate with HPE OneView, and we have ties into the global dashboard, and we can actually pull information out of Azure Public through Azure Log Analytics. So a lot of ways that we're working. All right, let's wrap up here. For summary and next steps, the things we need to keep in mind and the reason that we can ensure your success is the fact that, number one, we have a 30-year partnership with Microsoft. We're one of the strongest relationships we have with Microsoft, and Azure Stack is one of those things we're committed to together jointly to ensure its success. We have management tools like HPE OneView. We have our Innovation Center. We have all of those features we talked about, superior configuration flexibility. We have a cloud pricing model, pay as you consume, or you can buy it as a single CapEx purchase. We have tools and capability and relationship with partners to produce high availability. And last but not least, don't forget the Silicon Root of Trust, the highest security on any server platform in the industry today.